Schools are always a big question. To preface how Sunnyvale is set up, if you look to the south, if you're looking at a map, Sunnyvale is surrounded by 3 cities and then the Baylands. So Sunnyvale, California, actually I need to point this out too. Sunnyvale, California, not Sunnyvale, Texas. If you just Google Sunnyvale, you might end up with Sunnyvale, Texas. So make sure you're looking at Sunnyvale, California. But there's 3 cities that surround it. Santa Clara is to the south, Mountain View is to the north, Cupertino is to the west, and then the Bayland are up east. And so a couple different questions come up around the schools. There's 3 main high schools that are public in Sunnyvale. Homestead High School is the school that is furthest west. The next school up is going to be Fremont, and then the last school is going to be Wilcox. The reason it gets confusing is because Homestead is not in Sunnyvale. Homestead is in Cupertino. Fremont is in Sunnyvale. Wilcox, that's in Santa Clara. And so you have 3 schools for Sunnyvale, 2 of which are in different cities. So it can be confusing there, but they're all part of Fremont Union School District. Let's take a look at what types of values you can expect to pay inside of the different areas of these schools. So if you're looking at Homestead High School, that's the furthest west. That tends to be the highest price point, or until recently. It's still the highest price point for the most part. Typically in that area of the West Sunnyvale area, you can expect to pay anywhere from about $3 million to about $4 million. There are some outliers on that, and the outliers actually tend to go higher. And so you can find a few houses here and there that actually fall into the $5 million category, and not just in West Sunnyvale. In Middle Sunnyvale, you can plan to pay typically between 2.5 and 3, and sometimes it'll bump above that. There are a few that are 3.5, and again, if there's a new build, you can expect to pay a little more for that as well. And if you're looking at the east part of Sunnyvale, that is going to be somewhere around 1.5. Sometimes you can get 1.5, but definitely into 2 and 2.5. And some of the newer builds over there will actually fetch closer to $4 million as well. Regardless of where you look in Sunnyvale, it is not an inexpensive place to be. Sunnyvale is really kind of a hidden jewel or hidden gem of Silicon Valley for a long time. Once they revamped the downtown of Sunnyvale, that actually really brought a lot more attention to the train station. And so the train station's been there forever. So you can take the train and set from downtown Sunnyvale to Palo Alto. You can take it down to Santa Clara. You can take it all the way down to Salinas. You can take it up to San Francisco as well. It's really kind of created this hub. And Sunnyvale, it's not that huge of a city. It's only 22 square miles in total. It doesn't take that long from anywhere in Sunnyvale to get to the train station, for the most part. Especially if you're riding a bike, if you have an e-bike. Sunnyvale is very bike friendly, so it makes the e-bikes much easier to access from anywhere in the area to get to the train station. And so that helps a lot as well. So that really recently has made the values in Sunnyvale, I'd say over the last 5 years, really go up. It's a great town, it's a great city, and the schools themselves do come into play a lot. There is a private high school as well, which is King's Academy. King's Academy is further east in Sunnyvale. You have 3 main public schools, which is Homestead, Fremont, and Wilcox. Homestead is Hollenbeck north to Knickerbocker, and from 280 up to 101. Fremont is Hollenbeck south to South Wolf, and then it caveats out a little bit around the Lakewood area up into the wetlands. And Wilcox is from South Wolf over to Lawrence, and then it jets out El Camino up over to San Tomas Expressway. That's kind of a loose covering of the grounds there, but it gives you an idea. Overall, those 3 main schools expands out. As far as the education goes, Homestead is a fantastic school, Fremont is a fantastic school, and Wilcox is a fantastic school. At this point in the education, when you're looking at these 3 different schools, there's really no difference that you can point out. At one point in time, a long time ago, when I was going to school, there were different schools that were kind of seen as the elitist schools. I went to Monte Vista High School in Cupertino, and Monte Vista High School in Cupertino was seen as a top school to be in, as a top public school. What has since happened is Monte Vista was so academically driven that it was not allowing the students to be diverse in sports and things of that nature. People were just very, very focused on the academics. Homestead has actually become very much more sought after in a lot of ways. And it used to kind of go down the chain. It was Monte Vista was kind of the best school everybody wanted to go to. Homestead was kind of second best. Fremont High, and then Wilcox. And I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. That's just how it was. Now, across the board, you have Homestead, you have Fremont, and you have Wilcox. All of these schools are very well-rounded schools. When you're looking at the middle schools, so there's actually 4 different middle schools for Sunnyvale. And in these middle schools, if you look at how they are broken out, you actually do have Cupertino Middle, and then you're going to have SMS, which is Sunnyvale Middle School. And then from there, you're going to have Columbia Middle School. And then from there, you'll have Peterson Middle School. That's going from west over to east. Again, all of these schools are fantastic schools. There's nothing better or worse about any one of them. They're all really, really good schools. Elementary school is one of those years that when I'm working with clients and talking to clients, elementary schools come up a lot. And one thing that I tell my clients all the time is that all of the elementary schools, just like the high school, just like the middle school, the elementary schools have all the same curriculum. And in fact, many of the teachers will actually work inside of the Sunnyvale Union School District to work at different schools. There's no reason to put one school against the other. All of the schools are very, very good schools. One interesting thing about Sunnyvale elementary schools is there's actually 12 elementary schools currently in Sunnyvale. What had happened at one point was there were more elementary schools in Sunnyvale at one point, and what they would do is they would build the communities around the elementary schools, which is actually a really cool concept because the idea was for everybody to be within walking distance of a school. What they did was many of those elementary schools at one point in time were not all being utilized, or there weren't enough students in the school. Now we actually have the opposite problem, so to speak. Now the schools are expanding because there are so many students in each school. But if you take it as 12 elementary schools and 22 square miles, you have 1.8 square miles within each school. Now, the boundaries don't necessarily reflect that, but it's a really cool concept when you think about it from that perspective. And it does make it easy enough for the elementary school students and their parents to get them to those schools. I think the overall concept of having the schools within walking distance, especially for elementary, it's a really good concept. So to recap on this, if you look at the elementary schools, there's 12 elementary schools in Sunnyvale. They all have the same curriculum, and they're all very diverse as far as the students that go there, the families that are there, and all the interaction with the families and with the teachers and with the schools themselves. There's not one elementary school in Sunnyvale that I wouldn't feel comfortable sending my kids to. Same with the middle schools. Again, if you break those out, there's not as many middle schools, but as the kids get older, it's easier for them to either bike to school or have their parents drop them to school or carpool to school, what have you. So if you break that out, you have 4 middle schools for 22 square miles. And so roughly 5 miles per middle school. Maybe 4.5 miles per middle school, I'm not sure. But across the board, it makes it easy enough for the kids and the students to get to school. Then when you look at the high schools, very similar. Like I said before, all the high schools are fantastic schools. And across the board, if you're looking at the affordability of Sunnyvale, go to the eastern area of Sunnyvale. There's wonderful houses over there, fantastic communities, fantastic people. And remember, there's 19 plus parks in Sunnyvale as well. So every place that you go to live in Sunnyvale, 19 plus parks, 22.78 miles, everywhere you go to Sunnyvale, you're within walking distance of a park. And so Sunnyvale was created to really have this kind of green space continuously. Sunnyvale is such a great city, and there's so many positives to it, just like so many other areas in Silicon Valley. If If you have any questions, give me a call. Phone number is 408-393-9294. Talk to you soon.